Hello there, friends and family. How are we doing? How are you doing? I hope you're all well out there and just enjoying your afternoon, enjoying your Sunday. Oh, wow, it's already Sunday. I hope you're all having a restful or exciting weekend, however you choose to slice it. As you know, okay, tell a friend. Tell them to pull up Vuteni stools. That's Kiswahili for pull up your stools for today's Beyond Performative Diversity discussion session. Okay, you know what it is. We unwrap and discuss all things moving beyond performative diversity because that's what it's all about. And so, also for those of you who may not know, this month, April, it is Financial Literacy Month as well as National Poetry Month. And so, with those two topics, I have been able to secure a super duper just amazing guest for y'all today. Okay, this person doesn't know that he's secretly like, he has my heart, and I love all that he's doing, both personally and professionally, and he is on his grind and just doing the dang thing. So by all means, he'll be joining us shortly. So again, take 2 to 5 seconds, share, invite your friends, let them know that today we're going to be talking about what. Yes, no romance without finance. Okay, we're going to be addressing both things. Romance in terms of, like, again, poetry, highlighting that National Poetry Month and the importance of finance and financial literacy. Okay, so without further ado, I would love to invite my guest for today, the one and only Akil White.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey. Oh, listen, thank you for making the time to join us today. So for folks who, for the folks who know me, they already know my name is Winnie Okello, aka Winnie O, comma PE or Queen, however people refer to me. I'm here. I am here monthly. And so if you don't mind, please introduce yourself because they may not be as familiar with you. Let them know who you are, what you do, and we can get into it.
Sure, I'll try my best. I'm really bad at this, but I've been practicing, so we'll see. Again, my name is Akil White. I work in finance, and I am also a poet. I've been in finance for like 8 years. I teach financial education right now at a financial services institution, and I'm also a writer when I'm not doing that. So, thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. Whew, fam. Um, so we're gonna start with I guess, with the the financial side of things, because like I said, even though there's no romance without finance gonna come first before other things come. Okay.
That it does. That it does.
Okay. And so, when we talk about the importance of financial literacy, especially in context of diversity or equitable inclusion, which is really the context in which I talk about these things, when we especially specifically address our Black and Brown communities, our Black and African diaspora communities across the
Hmm.
globe. And you can definitely make it contextual to our American community, a Black community. Why is financial literacy important, and why should that be highlighted more intentionally for our people?
I think, plainly put, I think it's the cornerstone of this air quotes American dream thing that we all strive or are in this rat race of sorts to achieve, right? Whatever that looks like for you. But I think it
Mm-hmm.
gets conflated with social media, especially these days, of attaining these things, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we actually do it outside of, again, getting a job and saving or putting money under your mattress, so on and so forth? So I think
Yes.
it's a bunch of misinformation out there. But I think the key is seeking out the information and really dumbing it down. I'm the king of asking dumb questions because I think people people complicate things for what reason I don't know. But I'm
Yes.
literally the guy in the meetings. Hey, what are we actually talking about? We're having this
Say it.
meeting that could have been an email, right? But here we are, and we're not
We'll
even
talk
talking
about
about anything. So with that said, what are we here for? What is the root cause? But I do the same
it.
thing
Yeah.
as when I talk about financial education.
Hmm.
I like talking about stories and not numbers because again, the numbers are
Yes.
different for everybody. And if we're having a presentation across the board, those numbers go over everybody's head, go over everyone's head, and then we don't
Yes.
get to the bottom of anything. So hopefully that
Hmm.
answers your question. But I think that's the beginning of it. Is it starts at the information and knowing what to do with it or how to put it in action in your personal life. And I think that's where the stories come into play.
Okay, okay. I like this. I like this. Okay, so again, I'm gonna bring it back one more time, right? In terms of financial literacy, right? The basic definition is right is the possession of the set of skills and knowledge that allows an individual to make informed and effective decisions with all of their financial resources. So at the end of the day, for me, I love when folks get technically competent enough in their skill set to be able to make it practical for people who
Oh,
are not in
absolutely.
that space. Right. And, you as a, financial advisor, myself as an engineer, I'm like, when I look at these spaces and the technical information we learn, I find that far too often it's very siloed, and it's
Hmm.
like it gives off this air of, oh, you have to be in our club to understand our language. And the reality is, if we really are going to achieve that proverbial American dream, right, or whatever, again, whatever that looks like for each person, if we're really to achieve that, we have to be able to invite the rest of our people into these spaces, right? Because availability of information does not necessarily equate to access to that
Hmm.
information.
I
So
agree.
ensuring that the information is not only available but accessible to people is so important. So having folks like you who are able, as you say, to ask those seemingly dumb questions, I'm like, nah, fam, it's not dumb. It's literally saying, how do we make this practical or practicable to the next person who may not have that degree that I do, who may not have access to the folks that I do to explain this complex ideas or complex theories and theorems. And you mentioned something else in your clarification, numbers, right? Because yeah, for those who know me, know that I am a big fan of data collection.
Really?
Listen, and for me, it's also about like moving beyond basic data. For so long, as someone also who's heavily who heavily like interacts in research spaces, particularly in like transportation and intersectionality related
Hmm.
topics, data is so is data is so important. People say information is power. No, information and
It is.
data is simply information, but how you use it is
Hmm.
where power and access comes through, right? It's data is simply data. We have dictionaries, we have robust data sets on these Beyonce's internets, right? but but if you don't know how to access it, if you do not know what to do with that data, if you do not know how to read or interpret that for folks so that it helps make sense for them,
It
then
doesn't
what good is
matter.
that data? You know?
Yeah.
So for me, again, I'm a big advocate for contextual data. And in this day and age, the importance of data that takes into account intersectional lived experiences. So even as you said, what
Ah.
data looks for one person, right? So like here, I'm back at BU for the weekend for it was for Nesby 30. How are you
Wow.
doing? So yeah, I know, right? That's a whole other conversation. I know.
Wow.
So yeah, gotta be orange, yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to the importance of contextual data that takes into account our lived experiences, data that is able to tell the fuller story, because people like to say data doesn't lie. No, data does not always tell you the full story. It tells you a story, but it doesn't always tell us the full story. And data simply tells you what is, it doesn't tell you why or how.
Hmm.
And so that's why folks like us come in and help to bridge that gap and help to tell that fuller story of, if you're looking at a data set, well, what does it mean for women? What does it mean for men?
Exactly.
What does
Hmm.
it mean for trans folks? What does it mean for immigrants or Black communities or Latino communities, or insert whatever intersectionality? What does it mean for people who have access to transportation or not? What does it mean to somebody who has, a bachelor's, a master's, a PhD, right? Like this
Amen.
is where, to
Mm.
me, data becomes fancy and like fun, and the spaces where we begin to expand upon the narrative of telling the story of a people. For me, that's really the fun part of data, how we begin to tell that story. So thank you so much for touching on that. Any
When
input?
you No, when you put it like that, I mean, I love data now too. I mean,
See, and that's yo.
I'm all
Listen,
in.
for me, that's I think really that's how we get people interested in what we do, right? Like if all I told you was like, yeah, I'm doing this research on, on air in an urbanized area, you're like, okay, what does that mean to me? Right? Like we gotta make it practical. Or if I'm saying,
Hmm.
oh, we're doing like a feasibility study for like where we should put bus stops or what we need to add to bus stops, you're like, all right, cool. How does that make sense to me? And then but then when I go forth and say, okay, we're looking at,
Hmm.
you know how polluted is your air within your city right now, how polluted is your water, like
Then
what will
yeah.
that pollution do to you as a woman? How does that impact your fertility or your overall health? As Black and brown people, if you happen to live in or near an environmental justice community, what does that really mean for you
What's it look like? Hmm.
personally right now, long term? What chronic health effects may come out of that, right? So that's where we get people involved in the story, right? Where we personalize that and make it real in their lived experiences right now. So yeah,
It's all
you're
contextual.
really
Yeah.
good. Yeah, you're a really good person, and today, good example of why it's important to make our technical stuff relevant. Because when we do not, we lose a lot of people in the sauce.
I see it a lot, especially when I'm giving presentations, is because I do it in tandem with financial advisors. So I'm the director of business development for sports and entertainment, whatever that means.
Mm-hmm.
I have conversations about finance and
Mm-hmm.
all types of stuff. With that said,
Uh-huh.
I'm partnered up with a lot of technical individuals that are running data sets and
Yeah.
again doing models and all types of stuff in reference to the stock market. But again, I have to
Yes.
translate this because again I speak their language. I took the same tests.
Mm-hmm.
I have the same education, but at the same time, if I barely know what that means, I know no one else knows what that means when we're giving a presentation. So when I reference the stories, it's stuff that you can touch,
Yeah.
like what how were you raised, right? I'm one of four kids. My mom used to
Mm-hmm.
take us to the store. I used to throw
Yeah.
stuff in the cart and she would be like, put it back, we don't have money for this, right? We can't
Yeah.
afford it. And that just grew me into being a saver. There's no right
Mm-hmm.
or wrong way to be. If you're a spender, if you're a saver, maybe you grow up with money,
Yeah.
which is fine, right? You have a
Mm-hmm.
different relationship with money, but as long as you're cognizant of what that is, then you can make
Yes.
steps to change or grow it or shrink it, whatever it may
Facts. Fact. Listen. See again. For me, I love practical examples. For me, because that's how we connect with whatever abstract concept may be placed, before
be.
us.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I love this. I love this. Awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. And so, from the that space of understanding financial literacy and its importance, right? We see it tie into then this idea and manifestation of generational wealth, right? Which is a concept that I would say it's been fairly recent, in terms of how common it has become, how commonly it has become embedded in just the everyday vernacular and the lexicon of society,
Hmm.
as something that folks are even familiar with, because I'm not sure it really was such a talked about discussion a decade or two ago. This
Okay.
idea of really building generational wealth, especially in the Black and brown community, and what that means for us, and what that means even when we talk about wage gaps or that generational wealth disparity between
Absolutely.
those who have and those who have had legacies, of financial awareness and financial literacy. Could you kind of touch upon that from your experiences
I
and
think
awareness?
some reasons behind that is certain individuals that are black and brown have had time to attain the wealth and knowledge, whether
Yes.
we can use Jay-Z and Beyonce, right? Their time and their rise over these
Yes.
decades and their
Yeah.
access and their exposure to wealthier people or different types of rooms and different deals
Mm.
and such have allowed their just level of knowledge to rise. And again, once it gets embedded into the culture, it's like a trickle down effect to a certain degree. But I think it's
Absolutely.
the growth of the black mind and the that money grower, as well as the not decline or the moving forward of the baby boomers and such, and the rise of the millennial and the Gen
Hmm.
Zs and the internet and all that, and so on and so forth, and what
Yes.
wealth means, right? It really is, and maybe because I've been doing it for so long, and doing it
Yeah.
is again learning the words and playing in the space and learning what it actually is. Again, it's the
Yes.
stock market, it's saving money, it's putting money away, it's
Yes.
doubling your money in different ways to do that, living below your means. But it's not as
Yes.
complicated as it may seem at all. Just the idea about credit and what it
Yes.
means to you and how it follows you forever, but you shouldn't be scared of it, right?
Correct. Correct.
And different ways to have conversations or different ways to buy a home and not going to a bank or using cash and all these,
Mhm.
again, we could talk all day, all these concepts, right?
Yeah.
And once I think we're really wrapping our minds around what it means for us today, but also what it means for our grandchildren, right? And how better off I would have been if someone left me $10,000 or I had no student loans or just those
Come
little
on now.
things that can change an
Hmm.
individual's life as we live paycheck to paycheck. But again, if someone did leave you $15,000 to do what's make and gave you the option after you graduated high school, do you want to go to college or do you want to start your own business, right? What does that look
Yes.
like? And just being awarded different options to make different choices is something I think that the future holds for us rather than before we're operating
Hmm.
from a sense of survival and now we can thrive and like make informed decisions ultimately.
Mm. Mm. Come on, sir. Preach on it. Like, yes. Ugh. Does somebody want to leave us money? Please and thank you. Right? Like, yeah.
I'd
I
love
mean, I
it.
would hope, yeah. Right. At this point, the point is to hopefully leave something for the next
Something. Yeah.
generation. Right? Something. Start somewhere. Start ahead from where where I left. And you're right. And we're finally seeing that with our generation of folks, where folks are very intentionally minded about, well, what does legacy look like for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
In whether personally, communally, professionally, what does that look like for us? And I'm glad that you touched on the concept, you're right, of how folks leave or don't leave stuff for those who come before them, or even on the opposite, leaving them with debt,
Exactly.
right? The financial responsibility that they didn't plan for,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it really reminds me, this the, this idea of the phrasing of, we often hear, well, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams, right? And that is very true. I want folks
Oh,
to understand that
absolutely.
that is very true, that we are in 2022 our ancestors' wildest dreams, right? Like their hopes and dreams and all their expectations that perhaps they didn't even see as a reality, as a potential for a reality in their existence. Whereas now, for me, I also I like to tag on that we also need to live cognizant of the fact that we are somebody's ancestor. Somebody will look back and be like, when he, oh, Akil White, like, yo, I come from like really amazing bloodline. I come from amazing lineage. And
It's a little pressure.
that
Wow, goodness.
it did, but it's true though, like,
Yeah.
right? It's true. Like, cause and I'm sure brother, I choose to believe that I would hope that our ancestors were mindful of that. And and I choose to believe that it is true, especially if you look at the information that they left us, whether
Yeah.
physically through the archives of our chief storytellers, our griots within our respective communities. They understood that there were certain things that we needed to pass down, that we needed to know, that are like, my descendants, 2, 3, 4, 30 generations are going to need this, right?
That's true.
And so, like I keep telling people, like, at the end of the day, even if they burn down all the libraries, we are the libraries, right? There's an African saying, an African proverb, that when an elder dies, a library is burnt down.
Oh wow.
And the reality is, if you don't want the library to burn down with the information, we have to have lineage that
Pass it on.
passes down
Mm-hmm.
on that information. The chief storytellers must have somebody to whom they can share those key pieces of information to pass down to the next generation. And those people are so crucial. So, which is why I tell people, even now, right, the storytelling, the chief storytellers now have become the influencers, and those of us who hold spaces like this, right, where we are intentionally archiving our lived experiences and the things that we know, and sharing that wealth of information, right? Because you
you
and
know,
I have taken the time to do the research in our respective spaces,
when you put it like that, yeah, I guess we are archiving our lives and saving it for our
right?
ancestors.
Yeah. you know? So yeah, 20, 30 years from now, hopefully our descendants are gonna be like, oh, all right, or like 100 years from now, we'll say 100, right? however they happen to come through, right? Hopefully they'll be like, dang, yo, right? Because for me, I love watching like those old documentaries. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, they were saying, the Kwame Toure's,
Hmm.
the Nkrumahs, the Tom Mboyas, the Mandelas when he included out there, like they were saying pretty much the same thing we were saying today. They were having this intellectual discourse about society, about politics, about health, about the importance of community, about the importance of really understanding why it's important for us to have each other's backs and to band together against all other forces, right?
Hmm.
That are trying to, eradicate the community that really exists amongst ourselves, right? Whether at home on the continent or throughout the diaspora, right? The importance of prioritizing that above all else, right? So for me, I'm like, yo, you're right. Like, I guess I am somebody's ancestor. They're gonna be looking back 100 years from, like, yo, okay, she was smart. She was doing things. She was smart.
At this video, yep.
Come on now, come through. Listen, because like, oh, quick plug for Julia Mallory, Black Mermaids, right? An easier assignment is not coming. Do your work,
Mm.
right? I love me a good graphic tee, because it's, to me, that's the best way of throwing professional shade without being shady. So, so yeah,
Touche.
like these are the gems to me that I believe are so important in how we own our narrative. At the end of the day, it's about how do we get to own our narrative such that we leave our descendants a better place to start from. We leave our community enough information such that we're not constantly starting from zero or one. So that the next person, right, whether it's your mentee who comes into the
Hmm.
professional environment, how do you equip them to start from 10 where you started at one? Right? How do they start from 20 or 50? Right? So that there's less of that catch up gap. Um, yeah. So yeah, that's that. That's that. I'm gonna leave it at that.
I like that.
All right. And so, right, so we've talked about the importance of financial literacy and how that impacts this concept of generational wealth and the importance, right, of community and standing together and building that. And so, with that, I'll plug kind of like how we reconnected with
Yes.
is through Mo Better Live, which was actually accidental because I kept on seeing when you would share the live, I was like, what is he doing? Because I listen, I just be like, when I'm bored, I'm like, okay, so what are people
Early
doing?
quarantine. Yeah, exactly.
Yo, listen, we quarantine gave people time. I realized I had skills that I didn't even know I had. Apparently, I'm a
Tapping into
good
all
cook.
types of stuff.
Okay,
Me too. See,
I
I can
I didn't
season. I
know
don't know about
that.
the cooking. I'm all right.
It's okay. That means it will not be bland. So that's good. That's good. Okay, you season. I'll put on the five. We good.
Perfect.
Yes. I realized I was like, hold up, like I was like, what? I be cooking out here, like, and it was like real cooking, not like the quick 30 minutes throw it together. It was the cooking with love that takes you hours, and I'm like,
Oh.
hey, somebody's going to be happy out here, okay?
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I can taste the love, because I was like going through like my photos. I'm like, dang, what was I going through? I was
Cooking.
cooking up a storm, but such is life. So Mo Better Life, right? So I kept on seeing you do these sessions in Mo Better Life, which I will say everybody on there in that space was dope AF. Like I feel like these
Very
people
good
are like
people.
my Facebook, my internet friends, even though I've never met them in real life. Yeah, personally speaking, everybody from that space, dope AF. If you have a chance out there, if you're watching or listening, go check out Mo Better Live. And I believe they're on Snapchat as well, right? Now, I think it's a Snapchat
Uh,
or what is it called? The
been
other
so
one.
long.
So I know
We're on
you know what I
Clubhouse. We're
mean.
on Clubhouse. I think we're still on
Ye-
Clubhouse.
Yes, definitely Clubhouse. Still on IG. I see
Still
the
on
IG
IG.
page,
Hmm.
and right,
Yep, it's
yeah.
Mo Better like the movie, and ultimately what it is, it's
Hmm.
a writing community. We banded together at the top of quarantine, and we were
Hmm.
just I don't even know why I would pull the prompts from. I would create these prompts, and we would just write
Yes.
for 4 minute clips and just share it
Yes.
together.
Mhm.
No practice, all raw and unedited,
Yes.
and it's pretty fun.
Yes. And I'm glad. Thank you for kind of providing a bit more context on that.
Hmm?
Yeah, because I was like, hold up, everybody's just writing in these 4 minutes, and it was like okay, and for me at least it was good to have such a space where it was intentional that you cannot, you know, crap on your own work. Like you cannot put yourself down. Like
I'm
I
happy you
thought that
remember the
was
rules. Yeah, that was
yes,
the number one
it
rule.
was it was important. And because for me, typically, like I realized I had written so much for like years, and I was always like, okay, I'll put it out eventually. But I was so like judgmental, and
Hmm.
I was like, it's not good enough. Like everybody else's is better. And really, like Mo Better Life was the first place where I actually began to share my stuff, and I'm like,
Wow.
people were actually like in support, and because there was the one that I did. Oh, well, the other guy's name,
Will.
Vondre.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So I did. There was a prompt. It was one of your prompts, but Vondre was the host,
Okay.
and I think it was. Is it almost midnight or something like that? Or it was one of
That
those.
sounds familiar.
So I
Yes.
combined two of them, and y'all, he was like, "What?" He's like, "I thought you were talking to me." And I'm like, I love the dynamics of the co-host. I love the dynamics of the space that y'all have created.
Hmm.
Like, it was so needed. It was so needed for the community.
I think it
So
was just something to do in quarantine to pass the time, but also I think it was something that I didn't even realize that I needed. It helped me finish my
hmm
book, but also, like you just said, it was afraid to share, but also it's just like the
yes,
same thing of not knowing what to do and not knowing what to say. Whether it's financial literacy, whether it's writing,
yeah,
it's knowing, it's being comfortable in what you know and who you are, but also asking that dumb question and just putting it out there
hmm
just to see. I don't know what a Roth IRA is, but hell, let me ask. How can it help
yeah,
me? And the
yeah.
worst someone can say is no, but it's the same thing with writing. Just share it, and why do I have notebooks full of stuff that no one will ever see? You know what I mean? So
That part.
here we
That
are.
part. Yo, ain't that show? So actually, I guess since we're here, I mean, do you have something you can share with us? A little. I mean, I
Oh,
know. Okay, and do you have a quick,
do
little
I?
something from your? I mean, from your book, because we know you got a book out.
I do have a book.
We know that much for the people who may be
Wow,
interested.
literally on the spot here.
I'm sorry. Or not. You can always say no, you know.
You know what? I'm gonna say yes, but just let me
Okay.
find one as I
It's
talk and
okay.
and and
It's
skip through pages because I don't want to find a bad one. I would say
oh. Well, a
not a
bad
bad
one.
one, but
Define a bad one.
anything with curse words. I would say.
Oh.
Let's say that.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Absolutely.
Um,
Oh my word. Yeah, so I guess while you're finding it, I will continue kind of sharing my experience with More Better Life. So I will also say I love that like it was people from all over. Like it wasn't necessarily
there really was,
regionally
yeah.
restricted, right? And if anything, to me, it was so cool to also like hear people's story and like the background of kind of how people were writing, coming up
You're
with these
making me miss it
topics.
just sitting here listening to you. Wow.
I mean, listen, y'all the ones who control that space, so
You are correct.
it's up to you. I mean, I miss it. I'm gonna speak for myself and everybody else who agrees with me. Like, I do miss a better life, but I don't want it to feel like pressure to do something that's you don't have capacity for at the
I
moment.
understand.
Yeah,
Let me find one. I should just pick a random page and just read to make it easier.
it's all right. It's all right.
I also don't want a sad one. Goodness.
So funny.
All right.
Oh. Mhm.
You know what? Let's just do it. Random page. This is called the Unwritten. The Unwritten. All right, we
Mhm.
ready?
Mm-hmm.
We chase after words tongues aren't strong enough to hold. We know not their weight, but proceed blindly anyway. Hope has become a slipperier slope of bedtime stories we still seek, full of white knights and princess tales that supply relief to loneliness of the heart. Because who said because who's to say love isn't tucked behind the next corner we turn, waiting beyond the next street we cross or coffee shop we encounter. We believe romantic love to be unwritten rule, like stacking cards in Uno, or walking on the outside of the street when we accompany a woman. A promise scribed with an invisible ink right alongside life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But you still wait for those three as well, don't you? So in reality, it is not. Love is not this mythical creature tethered to us all. It's not stardust and seven dwarves, but we are sleeping beauties if we cling to this fallacy. Love is hard work and it must be sought after. Why wait to fall in love when you can rise within it? I've noted love has always been right outside jab's length, so close. Perhaps we need to alter language used to allow a new outcome. The end.
Come through, family. Come
Right on
on
the spot.
through. Come. Thank you. Thank you so much for
No
willing to
problem.
share your work. I appreciate. Listen, I'm gonna say I am definitely a fan of your work. Unapologetically, I am a big fan of your work. I'm a
Thank
big
you.
fan of just anyone who is willing to put their heart out there to show that we're not these kind of unidimensional beings. Because I feel like too often, especially for those of us who happen to navigate the professional sphere and the professional scene, folks may see us a certain way. Whereas it's important to show that like we are multifaceted beings, we are multi-talented folks who are excellent in various spaces and skill sets, and we're not just this one thing, right? And all these skill sets are valid, and all these skill sets um, are important to connecting with people. Because I'll keep saying this, everything we do is out of relationship. And did you have some input on that?
No, I think that's spot on, and I think it's a testament or a piece of my whole being, and I guess who am still becoming, but also just being
Mhm.
comfortable enough. Again, I played sports my whole life, so again, I'm the athlete guy, I'm the finance guy, and now I'm the poetry
Yeah.
guy. But even then, like telling them, oh, I write poetry, they were like, what?
Hmm.
Just even the ridicule I got. I have a nose ring. I don't know if you can see it, but it's just like you're getting a nose ring, like just the air quotes judgment from people that I've known my entire life. Every time I get a new tattoo, it's something else. But it's just being steadfast enough to not allow that to push you astray and stop. Because
Yeah.
I think, again, as kids, we think we can do anything, and you can. But as you
Yes.
fail over and over again, or you get a little bit of ridicule, you kind of lose. All right, maybe I shouldn't be doing that, or you
Yes.
you lose that
Yes.
belief within yourself. But I think
Mm-hmm.
again at the top of quarantine or before, it's like it's good to tap back into that and champion yourself in what you're doing and not allow just again your closest friends again they
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they can be worse than your damn enemies because they're the closest to you and they have access to you and they can kill your dreams without knowing it, but just
Oof.
continue to press forward. As corny as that sounds, but it's what occurred and what I'm doing every day. As much as I hate public
Absolutely.
speaking and I'm nervous as hell, it's just like who are you to judge me for being up here and having something to say? But at the same time, again, it's all psychodynamics. But I want to get into all that. But what I will say is,
Yeah.
believe truly believe in yourself, not just the surface level. I believe in myself, but like really believe it and
Mm.
put the work in behind it, so you can continue to achieve and attain all those things. Because again, it's just
Absolutely.
lip service if you don't. Yeah.
Fam,
Sorry
ain't
if I
that
was
the
ranting.
truth? No, no, fam, please, please, and thank you. Welcome. Please continue. Because you hit the nail on the head, right? Sometimes it be your own people.
Mm.
And I find myself saying that a lot. Sometimes it be your own people who say those things that really cut deeper,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
And stop you from doing the things that you're inspired to do, right? I often remind myself that that random thought that dares to try something new, that dares to be innovative, that
Hmm.
dares to give daylight to going beyond the boundaries of what I think is possible, to go beyond the boundaries of whatever my current comfort zone is. Like, it is so important to give that a fighting chance
Absolutely.
wherever you may be. Right. So, yeah, even as you say, like, hey, public speaking may not be the best, like my most comfortable thing
Hate
to do, but I'm willing to try
it.
it. I'm willing to grow. This is a space where you're showing that you're willing to grow in. And for you to even, that's what I was like. I will say, I saw when you posted it and I was like, oh shoot, should I like give him like an easy out and be like, oh, you don't have to do this, you know?
No.
But I look back on even just how I ended up where I am today, right? In engineering, as a professional engineer, as an artist, as all these things, as community advocate. I wasn't always these things that seem to be so innate in me now. Like, I was, for 4 years, I just shut up and like listened. It took me 4 years of just like listening, like staying in, but finding access to spaces where I could learn about the things that I was interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There are seasons there. One of the quotes I posted recently was, there are years that ask the questions, and then there are years that answer the questions.
Goodness.
You know, like,
I
it is
like that.
important to know which season you're in, right? And to roll with the tide of whatever season you happen to find yourself in. And right, yeah, there are those seasons where it's like, it's okay, it ain't your season yet, but in the meantime, in your waiting season, you have to do something that will prepare you for your active season, right?
Absolutely do.
Like
Yeah.
sports people, like, you don't just go out there and be like, run plays, right? You have to do things in off season that will prepare you for
Mm-hmm.
being active, like in your on season. And so, yeah, yeah.
No, I agree.
I love this. I love this. I love this. Also, given that I put you on the spot, I realize I'll balance it out. Because I'll probably I'll share mine later. I'll share one of
Ah.
my pieces. Yeah, because I'm like, yeah, yeah, because yeah, I was like, it's only fair. It's only fair. So I will share. I'm gonna get, yeah, might as well, since I hear why I put for later. Okay, so
Let's
I
do
don't know
it.
if you've heard this one, but it's actually a combination of two. So it's divinity in balance. Here we go. Alrighty then. To my fellow queens out there, to the sisters often labeled as strong, black, and women, may you be strong and so much more. Smart, sexy, beautiful, brilliant, and bold. Unapologetically you every step of the way. Be strong and gentle and kind and loving, self aware and community minded. Be ready to receive as much as you so often willingly give, ever so relentlessly, even to your own demise at times. May you see your worth beyond the annexation to another, beyond mother, sister, child, or wife. Know the intrinsic value you bring into every room you grace with your presence. Yes, be strong and so much more, dear queens. Willingly rest in the power of your divine feminine while nurturing the force within your masculine. Embrace all the complexities and nuances that create the royalty that is uniquely you. The throne and the crown both call out your name. Question is, will you answer?
Mhm.
Because for the love of God's favorite sons, my heart rejoices in the presence of your effortless majesty. The way the earth and its fullness bends and moves in response to your natural rhythm. Black kings and crowns holding the burdens of this world on their bare stripped backs. It's in the way that your words pierce through our hearts and penetrate deeply to inspire the goddess within. It's in the luminous smile that hides the weariness of this arduous existence. 10,000 stars could not compare to that black boy joy, all grown up and absolutely ravishing. It's the strength in your I got you when life unravels beneath our feet. It's the self assuredness in your stride that catches my eyes and tantalizes my soul. It's the beauty of this God in human form, reminding me there is a creator. See, you and I designed this verse because this you and I verse needs you and I first, beloved. If only you and I truly saw, felt, and stood still but for a moment. Because for the love of this richly melanated creation, God's favorite sons, I stand in awe and bow in reverence. Thank you, thank
That's very well done. I missed
you.
this.
Thank you,
Wow. I
man.
missed
Thank you.
this.
Right?
That's very
So
well done.
hopefully inspires y'all to bring back more better life.
Oh man.
Yes, yes.
Very well done. I like that a
You know,
lot.
you're very welcome, fam. You welcome. Yes, right? So like for me, it is so important that we create these spaces where we're able to validate one another's lived experiences, where we're able to see one another and intentionally not force or push, but intentionally maybe inspire, you
There's
know,
nothing wrong with a healthy little nudge,
you
just something.
know, a little motivation, like
Hmm.
fam, right? Like it's not always the thing that you want to do, right?
Not
Sometimes you got to do the things that you don't want. That may not be the fun thing to do, but it's needed.
absolutely.
Sometimes you got to do the things you got to do the things that you want to do. I learned that, to get here, right? As I started to get into engineering, I'm like, shoot, I was like, it sounds cool, but I'm not sure if that
Yeah.
really, I'm down for that. Like, and I
Hmm.
guess I was a scholarship kid. Like, literally, I'm like a plaster of like scholarship. And it was always hard to get in and harder to stay in.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
the fruit of that now, the fruit of that, you know, being all that I am in my becoming and unbecoming, I recognize the mantle that I hold in being able to hold the door and windows open for the next person, right? Such that they don't have to go through the same struggles, so that they
Hmm.
don't have to go through the same things that I went through in the name of character building, right? As a woman, as a Black woman in STEM, like F that character building. Ministry of Character Development, I do not support that. I am not in the Ministry of Character Development. What I am in the ministry of is love and support, and let's be out here and build the generations to be healthy and well adjusted and be just change makers, right? Because it's one thing to ask for change. It's a different thing to demand for change when you know change is what is needed for progress,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
So tying it back to why I do this in terms of reminding us the importance of moving beyond performative diversity, regardless of whatever you call your profession, right? Even homemaking, right? Regardless of whatever your profession is, it is so important that we do move beyond performative diversity, because this whole DI, stuff, I know, right? Yeah, fam, yeah, right? We see it and we hear it. Everybody is on the DEI train. Everybody, for those of you who aren't familiar with DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Everybody's all up, hopped up on the train, but not enough people are prioritizing the J in it, the restorative justice practices. And I will say this constantly, time and time again, I will forever say this. If your DEI does not include or prioritize restorative justice practices, I want no parts of it. Until you're willing to address why we even need to talk about DEI, what we need to have diversity, equity, and inclusion, practices, right, and policies, right? Because to get restorative justice, to get true Jedi, we must address the power and privilege that influence the policies and practices. Winnie owes 4 P's to Jedi. How you doing? Right? We must address power and privilege, because power and privilege absolutely correlates with how folks have access
It's
to
the access. Yeah.
policies that influence our practices, and how policies are practically implemented in communities and unfairly in certain communities. That's a real talk we're gonna have, right? So whether you're in engineering, you're in finance, you're in academia, all these spaces require us to show up in the fullness of who we are. So you'd find that even for me, like, my ability to write outside of engineering actually really helps me
Hmm.
to write and to reach people who may not necessarily understand engineering, but they understand regular people speak. right? These skill sets, these transferable skill sets are what we want folks to realize that yes, you can bring the fullness of who you are to what you do and make it work for you,
I think
right?
there's especially ways to do it across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Again, black, white, and different. Because again, no matter what, it
Absolutely.
takes time for you to even be comfortable
Yeah.
enough with yourself to even bring that at work, and
Huh.
meshing that together the right way, whatever that is,
Mm-hmm.
what it looks like for you is something different. And when you do get able, when you are in the space to be able to do that, I think it's like the perfect recipe, or it's like magic to a certain degree. Because again, marrying again my background in sports with my
Yeah.
background in finance, with also with poetry, because again I've done some stuff at work. My
Mm-hmm.
boss is a great champion of that, and just putting me in
Yeah.
positions to display that,
See?
and just bringing the full body to,
Yeah.
I guess, to work. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Okay. I'm loving this. I'm loving this. Ah, it's about that time. And so, I mean, please, first of all, I want to make sure that you plug. Do you have any special projects that you want to share with the people? Your book. Let them know where to get it. Drop a link in the chat box. Let us
I
know.
have published my first book. It's called The Interlude. What is the subtitle?
Tell them again. What's the title of the book?
The
Where can they get it?
Interlude Between
Mm-hmm.
Dreaming and Living Again or for the First Time. It is at
Mm-hmm.
akilwhite.com. Akilwhite.com. AHKIEL, white like the color, .com.
I love it. I love
Um, it's really about my journey to becoming a writer, but
it.
through the lens of love. But I think love has its spines in just everything in existence, period. Because
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we're all out there leading with love, whether that's work, romantic, non-romantic, everything in between. So I think it touches
Mm.
everything. So um, it's about 150 pages, I think. So I guess I had some things to say. I wrote it during quarantine or right before rolling in. But yeah, check it out.
Okay.
And Mo Better, I think we're gonna
Okay.
start doing sessions. Mo Better, like the movie. We're on Instagram as well, most
Yes.
social platforms. As am I. If you want to connect and talk about again finance, talk about poetry, talk about how I wrote my book and how I brought it from just an idea into the real world, or anything in between.
I love that. I'll definitely be following up on that. So again, I have dropped his link in the chat. Please feel free to directly connect with Akil if you have any more questions. I'm not telling y'all to slide in his DM. Please, that is not want to be clear about that. But again, support art, support your local artists, support Black artists. I'm all for supporting Black and Black owned businesses. So and entrepreneurs, because it is so important to really get the representation that is needed in these spaces, especially when we talk about art reflecting society and vice versa. So, yeah. Okay, so we're going to wind down with
Oh boy.
so, what does moving beyond performative diversity mean to you in context? And again, you can either keep it in context of, what we've talked about today, whether financial literacy, artistic expression, being authentic in the various spaces that we find ourselves in, in context of all the DEI and Jedi stuff going on right now in industry. What
Um,
does moving beyond performative diversity
I
mean to
think
you?
I'll try to simplify my answer like I do all things. But I think
Okay.
I think it's just that for myself, it is asking. I think I'm overly honest across the board in my personal life, at work, and everything. But I think a
Hmm.
level of honesty is needed to push the ball forward again in all avenues. So it is asking those dumb questions. It is bringing everybody down to the same level because people are just talking. But I prefer I'm results driven individual. Like why are we talking about all the issues if we have no solution to these issues? We're just talking. And I'm not a man of time, but I like to nap. So it's like if we can get to the meat and potatoes of things, let's do it. But it is taking real steps and taking real action to rectify whatever the situation is, right? And bringing your full self to any situation, whether that is in poetry and you being honest. Like you can only lie to yourself, right? Everybody else, again, can see through that to a certain degree. Sorry, you can't lie to yourself. Um, when it comes to work, when it comes to financial education, it is me doing the best that I can to translate and using the knowledge that I take for granted every day. When my grandma calls me and asks me, "What's the S&P 500? What does that even mean? What happened in the stock market today? Should I be buying GameStop?" No, because they already made all the money off of it, right? So all these things, and just being that translator and whatever your respective piece is in your world, again, tap into that and really just do a self audit. How can I help everybody else that's around me, and being willing to do so? But I think it starts there with ourselves and knowing, hey, what value can I provide to this space, to this room, across the board? Because I think when you said it earlier, um, once you realize who you are in certain rooms and certain spaces, or even as we were talking about our ancestors and how we leave stuff behind, um, everything that I have experienced has prepared me to do the things that I am doing today. Right? Is as camera shy and as much as I don't like speaking in front of other people, I to a certain degree I feel like a certain duty that I have to do it, right? Because I have this knowledge from this bucket, right? I can connect with people that do play sports, people that look like me. If I tell a certain story in a certain way, um, and or just that story about putting shit in a cart and your mom, yo, we don't have money for that, put it back. And that it grew me to be, we don't have money in my head, which is why I'm a saver right now, which means I can't go out and spend all types of things, which means I had to ask my dad 3 months in advance for some Jordans that was about to come out because I need to save the money right now because I know I
Come
want
on,
this pair of sneakers.
say
So
it.
I'll stop, but it's all these things rolled into one. But just cutting the performative out and just taking action, and I guess it's baby steps that can do that is asking real and direct questions whenever you don't know something, from somebody. It could be your mother. Mom, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Your lover, your partner, can you give me more clarity on it, and not fearing the outcome of that conversation. So
Mm.
I just put a period right there.
Yo,
Hopefully that answers
listen.
your question. But
Listen, me, me. Every answer is like, okay, now I heard this. Let's delve into
mhm.
that because, like, you kind of touched on another key aspect, right? Is relationships, right?
Oh
How
yeah.
we relationship, because that's a whole other conversation that will we can talk about that later. But yes, yeah, right. Thank you. That yes, that was very well stated.
No
And
problem.
even as you touched on, right, the importance of not fearing the response of people or from people,
hmm
regardless of what you ask them, especially when it comes to relationshiping, right? Because again, everything we do is out of relationship, whether it's platonic, romantic, familial.
Absolutely.
It helps us again tell the story of who we are as a people. That is how
I
we
agree.
again continue to build the archive and make better informed decisions, really, when all is said and done. So again, for this month's feature, or again, the importance of financial literacy and the importance of artistic expression, and overall the importance of moving beyond performative diversity to real equitable inclusion in these various spaces that we find ourselves in. It is so important that we normalize the conversation. Like, that's why I do this stuff, is how do
Yeah.
I help in normalizing these conversations, especially for our communities, for our community as Black people, as Black and Brown people, as folks throughout the diaspora, as for our young folks looking to see, well, what can I do with a finance degree? What can I
Yep.
do outside of sports? What can I do with an engineering degree? Do I specifically have to work in this industry with this particular degree? Right? Understanding that, again, regardless of whatever degree you get, it's the transferable skills that you get from it that get you to the next place, right? Oh, what's her name? She talks about pivoting in your career.
Oh, Bianca. Shout out to
Bianca.
you.
Oh, love her. Yes, I watch her lives as well, like during the day whenever she pops on. I have them in the background, right? Right. The importance of community, the importance of sharing our networks and sharing
Uh-huh.
our skill sets, right, across the board. If anything, I'll say one of the positive things that came through this quarantine, really, that we've had for X years now, has
A lot
been
of
this,
years.
breakdown of barriers, of these physical separations, that now folks really have greater access to one another and greater access to information that was originally available but not as accessible to folks. So again, if you see a webinar that you're interested in, yeah, learn something, hop on, learn
Definitely.
something. If you see a live stream like this, come through your, your page, listen in. You just might learn something. And even if it's
Hmm.
one thing, that could be the one thing that helps you connect something in the future. If it's a podcast, like, I am so tired of people like, well, I wasn't taught that in school, I can't address that topic. I'm like, do your homework, family. Do your homework. Do a little bit of Googling, do a little bit of research,
Real
listen
quick,
to
yep.
so yeah. Yeah, that's all there is to it, if you ask me. So, with that, again, Akil, I want to thank you so much for being my
Thank you
guest
for
today.
having me. No problem.
And so,
Thank you for
hopefully,
having me.
again, this is not the very last that we're going to be seeing of you. Again, come back the next time you have more stuff to plug, or you got new,
Hmm.
information, or again, or just a recap part two. We could always make it happen. So, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And for those of you out there who are familiar with Beyond Performative Diversity, come back next month, because it's always something new. For those of you who follow me on all my other platforms, let's harp about it. On the Narrative Africa, all that good stuff. Stay connected, and on all things social media at Winnie O Media, or my personal at Miss Winnie O, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah, all of them. Take care, be encouraged in all you do out there, and I will catch y'all on the next Beyond Performative Diversity. Ciao, family. Yeah.